Jake Harrison walked through the massive Federation salvage yard on Kepler Station with slow steps. The hot sun beat down on rows and rows of old starships that nobody wanted anymore. His boots crunched on the metal grating as he followed Captain Lisa Monroe between the forgotten vessels. She talked without stopping about budget cuts and how the Navy could not afford to keep old ships running anymore. Jake tried to listen, but his mind kept wandering. At 42 years old, he was being forced to retire early because of those same budget cuts. 20 years of service meant nothing when politicians needed to save money. The only way he could stay in space was to buy one of these junked ships and work as a private contractor in the Outer Rim territories. Most of the ships looked terrible. Rust covered their hulls and their weapons had been stripped away long ago. Some had holes blown through their sides from old battles. Others sat with their engines torn out, leaving empty spaces where the heart of the ship should be. Jake had looked at 12 vessels already, and none of them seemed worth the trouble. Then he saw a dot in the far corner of the yard. Almost hidden behind a pile of scrap metal sat a ship unlike any other. It was sleek and smooth where the others were blocky and rough. The hull seemed to shimmer in the sunlight with an almost living quality. Jake stopped walking and stared at the strange vessel. Monroe noticed that Jake had stopped following her. She turned around and saw where he was looking. Her face went pale and she shook her head quickly. "Not that one," she said in a sharp voice. "Nobody wants that ship. It has been sitting here for 20 years, and every officer who looked at it walked away." Jake moved closer to the ship. The registry plate read UFS Harbinger in faded letters, according to the datapad Monroe carried. The ship had been decommissioned 2 decades ago after its crew reported strange energy readings and system failures. Since then, dozens of potential buyers had examined it, but none had signed the papers. "What is wrong with it?" Jake asked as he walked around the ship's landing gear. The metal looked different from normal hull plating. It seemed to ripple and shift in the light like water. Monroe pulled out her datapad and read from it. The inspection teams report unusual power signatures. The ship draws energy from an unknown source even when all systems are supposed to be shut down. 3 different crews have reported hearing sounds from inside the ship when nobody was aboard. The last inspection team quit after their equipment started malfunctioning near the vessel. Chief Engineer Pete Collins joined them from where he had been checking other ships. He was a short man with graying hair and hands that were always dirty from working on engines. Pete had served with Jake on 2 different ships and was one of the few friends Jake had left in the Navy. "You do not want that ship, Jake," Pete said as he wiped his hands on a rag. "I was part of the team that brought it here 20 years ago. Strange things happened during the tow. Our navigation systems went crazy and we kept hearing voices over the communication channels. No one was transmitting, but the voices were clear as day." Jake walked up to the ship's main airlock. The door was sealed, but he could see a biometric scanner next to it. Something about the ship called to him in a way he could not explain. It felt like the vessel was waiting for something, or someone. "How much?" Jake asked. Monroe and Pete looked at each other with worried expressions. Monroe checked her datapad again. "The asking price is only 50,000 credits, she said. "That is less than the cost of the metal in the hull. The Federation just wants it gone." Jake had exactly 60,000 credits saved up from his military career. He could afford this ship and have money left over for supplies and fuel. Every other vessel in the yard cost at least 3 times as much. "I will take it," Jake said. Pete grabbed his arm. "Jake, listen to me. This is not just about money. Something is wrong with that ship. The crew that flew it before decommissioning reported that it seemed to respond to their thoughts. Systems would activate before they touched the controls. The navigation computer would plot courses they had not entered. The ship acted like it was alive." Jake looked at the Harbinger again. The hull seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. He knew Pete was trying to help him, but Jake felt drawn to this ship in a way that made no logical sense. "I need a ship, and this is the only one I can afford," Jake said. "I will take my chances." Monroe shrugged and pulled out the transfer papers. "It is your funeral." Just sign here and place your palm on the scanner for biometric confirmation. Jake signed the papers with quick strokes. Then he placed his palm on the biometric scanner to complete the transfer. The moment his skin touched the metal surface, something extraordinary happened. The ship's lights flickered to life for the first time in 20 years. A low humming sound came from inside the vessel, like a giant heartbeat. The hull plating began to shimmer more brightly, and Jake felt a strange, tingling sensation run up his arm from where he touched the scanner. Monroe stumbled backward with her mouth open. Pete's instruments started beeping wildly as they detected massive energy readings coming from the ship. The humming sound grew louder, and Jake could feel vibrations through the ground under his feet. "What is happening?" Monroe shouted over the noise. Jake could not answer because he felt something incredible happening in his mind. It was like a door opening in his thoughts, revealing rooms he had never known existed. Images flashed through his consciousness. Star charts, navigation data, and technical specifications that seemed impossibly advanced. The ship was somehow connecting with him on a level deeper than anything he had ever experienced. The lights stabilized and the humming quieted to a barely audible level. Jake removed his palm from the scanner and looked at Monroe and Pete. Both of them stared at him like he had just performed magic. "The ship is drawing power from an unknown source," Pete said as he checked his instruments. "Energy readings are off the charts, but I cannot find where it is coming from." Jake felt different, like part of him was now connected to the vessel, in ways he could not understand. The ship was no longer just a machine. It was something alive and aware, and it had chosen him. "I'm going aboard," Jake said. Monroe grabbed his arm. "Maybe you should wait. We need to run more tests and figure out what just happened." Jake gently pulled free from her grip. "The ship is mine now. I need to see what I bought." As he walked toward the airlock, Jake could feel the Harbinger welcoming him home. Jake spent the first 3 days after taking possession of the Harbinger learning about his new ship. The vessel was much larger inside than it appeared from the outside, with corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. Every room he entered would light up automatically as he approached, as if the ship knew exactly where he was at all times. The bridge was unlike anything Jake had seen in his 20 years of military service. Instead of the usual array of buttons and switches, holographic displays appeared in the air around the captain's chair. The controls responded to his touch, but also seemed to anticipate what he wanted to do. When he thought about checking the ship's status, the diagnostic screens would appear before he could even reach for them. On the third night, Jake was in the engineering section trying to understand how the ship's power systems worked. The engine room was massive, filled with machinery that hummed with quiet energy. He had been studying the main reactor for hours but could not figure out how it generated power. Without any visible fuel source, that was when he first heard the voice. "You are not like the others who came before," said a soft female voice behind him. Jake spun around quickly, his hand moving to the weapon on his belt. Standing in the middle of the engine room was a woman made of shimmering light. She was tall and graceful, with long hair that seemed to flow like water. Her eyes held a depth of knowledge that made Jake feel very small. "Who are you?" Jake asked, though he kept his voice steady despite his surprise. "I am Arya," the woman said as she moved closer. "I am the consciousness of this vessel. You might call me an artificial intelligence, though that term does not fully describe what I am." Jake had heard of advanced AI systems but had never seen one that could create such a realistic holographic form. Arya looked almost human except for the way light seemed to pass through her body. "How long have you been here?" Jake asked. "I have been waiting for 73 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Arya replied. "Though the ship has only been in this salvage yard for 20 years, I have existed much longer than that." Jake sat down on a nearby crate, trying to process what he was hearing. "Waiting for what?" Arya smiled, and the expression seemed genuinely warm despite her holographic nature. "I have been waiting for you, Jake Harrison. Or rather, I have been waiting for someone like you." "I do not understand," Jake said. Arya walked over to a wall panel and touched it with her glowing hand. The entire wall became transparent, showing Jake a view of space beyond the ship. But instead of the salvage yard, he saw star charts and navigation data that filled the entire display. "This ship is not what the Federation believes it to be," Arya said. "The Harbinger is far older than their records indicate. It comes from humanity's future, sent back through time as part of a desperate mission to prevent an extinction-level event." Jake stared at the star charts. They showed star systems and galaxies that he had never seen before. The level of detail was incredible, with information about planets, resources, and life forms that seemed impossibly advanced. "Time travel is not possible," Jake said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Your current science cannot achieve it," Arya agreed. "But the humans who built this ship possess knowledge that your civilization will not discover for another 800 years. They sent the Harbinger back to this time period because they knew that humanity would need its power to survive." "What is coming?" Arya touched another control and the display changed to show Jake something that made his blood run cold. It was a star map of the galaxy, but large sections were marked in red. As he watched, the red areas expanded, consuming more and more star systems. "What is that?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrian Empire," Arya said. "In the original timeline, they launched a war that consumed the entire galaxy. Billions of lives were lost before humanity finally developed the technology to stop them. The Harbinger was sent back to change that timeline, to give humanity the tools it needs to win the war before it becomes unwinnable." Jake stood up and walked closer to the display. The red areas showed the path of conquest that the Zephyrians would take, moving steadily toward Earth and the core Federation worlds. "Why me?" Jake asked. "Why did the ship respond to me and not to the others who tried to claim it?" Arya's expression became more serious. "Your great-grandmother Helen Carter was part of a secret government project in the early 21st century. The project involved genetic modifications designed to create humans who could interface with advanced alien technology. You carry those modified genes, Jake. You are one of the few people alive who can fully bond with the Harbinger systems." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about his great-grandmother, who had supposedly worked for the government during World War III. His family had always assumed she was just a clerk or secretary, but now he realized there was much more to her story. "The modifications were passed down through your family line," Arya continued. "Your grandmother had them, and your father, and now you, but in most cases they remained dormant. The Harbinger's awakening activated them in you." Jake could feel the truth of her words. Since touching the biometric scanner, he had felt different. His reflexes were faster, his mind sharper. He could sense things about the ship that he should not have been able to know. "What am I supposed to do with this information?" Jake asked. "Learn," Arya said simply. "The ship will teach you everything you need to know. Its weapon systems can punch through any known shield technology. Its engines can travel faster than light without the space-time distortions that limit your current ships. Its sensors can detect life signs across entire star systems." She gestured to the displays around them. "The Harbinger also contains a complete database of future human history, including detailed records of the war with the Zephyrians. You will know their tactics, their weaknesses, and their plans before they even make them." Jake felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Arya was telling him. "This is too much responsibility for one person." "You will not be alone," Arya assured him. "I will guide you and teach you. The ship will respond to your commands as if it were an extension of your own body. Together, we can change the course of history." Jake looked at the star charts again, focusing on the location of Earth. In the original timeline, it would be one of the worlds consumed by the red tide of Zephyrian conquest. "How long do we have?" he asked. "The war will begin in approximately 18 months, Arya said. "But there are already signs that the timeline is changing. The Zephyrians have agents throughout the galaxy, and some of them have noticed the Harbinger's awakening. We must be very careful about who we trust." Jake nodded slowly. The weight of humanity's future was now resting on his shoulders, but he felt ready to carry it. The ship had chosen him, and he would not let it down. Jake tried to keep the Harbinger's true capabilities secret, but that became impossible after what happened near the Vega system. He had been running a routine patrol mission when his sensors detected a massive pirate fleet attacking a civilian transport convoy. The pirates had been terrorizing the sector for months, and even full battle groups had struggled to stop them. Jake knew he should call for backup, but the civilian ships were taking heavy damage and would not survive long enough for help to arrive. He made a decision that would change everything. "Arya, can we handle 12 pirate ships without revealing too much about our capabilities?" Jake asked as he watched the battle unfold on his displays. "I can minimize the energy signatures and make it appear that we are using standard Federation weapons," Arya replied. "But there will still be questions about how one ship defeated an entire fleet." Jake gripped the arms of his command chair. "Do it!" The Harbinger moved into the battle with grace that no normal ship could match. Its weapons fired with precision that seemed impossible, each shot perfectly timed and placed. The pirate ships tried to return fire, but their weapons could not penetrate the Harbinger's shields. Within 10 minutes, the entire pirate fleet was destroyed or disabled. Jake helped the civilian ships repair their damage and continue their journey. He filed a routine report about the engagement, claiming that the pirates had been weakened by previous battles and that he had caught them by surprise. But he knew that explanation would not satisfy everyone. 3 days later, Admiral Roy Patterson arrived at Kepler Station. Patterson had been Jake's mentor during his early years in the Navy, and Jake respected the older man greatly. But he also knew that Patterson was not someone who would accept simple explanations for complex events. "Jake, we need to talk," Patterson said as he boarded the Harbinger. The Admiral was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "The pirates you destroyed near Vega had been giving us trouble for months. How did one ship accomplish what entire battle groups could not?" Jake led Patterson to the bridge, where he had prepared a series of half-truths and misdirections. "The ship has some unusual capabilities, sir. The previous owners made modifications that I am still learning about." Patterson examined the bridge displays with interest. "These holographic interfaces are not standard Federation technology." "Where did they come from?" "I believe they were experimental systems that were never widely adopted," Jake said. "The ship's previous crew must have been part of a testing program." The Admiral was not convinced. "Jake, I have known you for 15 years. You are hiding something important. The energy signatures from your battle with the pirates show weapon yields that should not be possible from a ship this size." Before Jake could respond, his communication system activated. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster was requesting permission to come aboard with a tactical inspection team. Jake had no choice but to grant permission, though he knew it would complicate his situation. Foster was a competent officer with short blonde hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She had brought 3 specialists with her to conduct what she called a routine inspection of the Harbinger systems. Jake suspected that Patterson had ordered the inspection to find out what he was hiding. "This is an impressive ship," Foster said as Jake showed her around the bridge. "The response time on these controls is incredible. It is like the ship knows what you want to do before you do it." Jake tried to keep his expression neutral. "The interface systems are very advanced. It takes some getting used to." Foster's team began running scans of the ship's systems while Jake watched nervously. Arya had assured him that she could hide the most advanced capabilities, but Jake worried that the inspection might reveal more than he wanted to share. During the inspection, Jake's sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. A ship was approaching Kepler Station using a stealth field that was almost impossible to detect. Only the Harbinger's advanced sensors could penetrate the alien cloaking technology. "Arya, what is that ship?" Jake asked quietly. "Zephyrian infiltration vessel," Arya replied through his neural link. "They are here for the Harbinger. You must prepare for boarding action." Jake's heart began to race. The war that Arya had warned him about was starting sooner than expected. He needed to protect his ship and Foster's team without revealing the full extent of his capabilities, the Zephyrian ship docked with the station and disgorged a team of infiltrators led by someone Jake recognized. Commander Susan Walsh had been presumed dead for 5 years after her ship was destroyed in a battle with alien forces. Now she was here working with the enemy. Walsh's team moved through the station with practiced efficiency, neutralizing security forces and making their way toward the Harbinger. Jake watched their progress on his displays while trying to decide how to respond. "Foster, we have a problem," Jake said. "Hostile forces are boarding the station and heading this way." Foster immediately went into combat mode, ordering her team to defensive positions. "How many and what kind of weapons?" "At least 12 infiltrators with advanced energy weapons," Jake said. "They appear to be targeting this ship specifically." Jake could feel the Harbinger responding to his emotional state, its systems preparing for battle without any conscious commands from him. The ship's defensive systems were activating, creating energy barriers and weapon emplacements that Foster's team could not see. Walsh's team reached the Harbinger's airlock and began trying to cut through the door. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Arya, activate full defensive protocols," Jake said. The ship responded instantly. An impenetrable energy barrier appeared around the Harbinger, trapping Walsh's team between the ship and the station. The barrier was invisible to normal sensors but completely solid to anyone who tried to pass through it. Foster stared at the energy readings on her instruments. "Jake, what is happening? These energy levels are impossible." "The ship has advanced defensive systems," Jake said. "I'm still learning how to use them." Walsh's team tried everything they could think of to break through the barrier, but nothing worked. In desperation, Walsh activated a powerful transmitter and began broadcasting data about the Harbinger back to her alien masters. Jake realized that their secret was out. The Zephyrians now knew about the Harbinger's existence and capabilities. The war that Arya had warned him about was no longer a distant threat. "Foster, I need to tell you something important," Jake said. "This ship is not what it appears to be, and we are all in great danger." The lieutenant commander looked at him with confusion and growing concern. "What are you talking about?" "The galaxy is about to go to war," Jake said. "And this ship may be humanity's only hope of winning." Jake knew he had to make the hardest decision of his life. After Walsh's attack and the data transmission to the Zephyrians, both Federation and alien forces would be hunting the Harbinger. He could surrender the ship to Admiral Patterson and watch humanity lose its greatest advantage, or he could go rogue and prepare for the war that was coming. Amy Foster stood on the bridge looking at the energy barrier that still surrounded the ship. Walsh's team was trapped outside, unable to break through the invisible wall that Jake had created. Foster's instruments showed power readings that should have been impossible for any known technology. "Jake, I need answers," Foster said. "What? Is this ship really?" Jake looked at her for a long moment, trying to decide how much to reveal. Foster was a good officer and a decent person, but she was also loyal to the Federation. If he told her the truth, she might try to stop him from doing what needed to be done. "The ship is from humanity's future," Jake said finally. "It was sent back in time to prevent a war that will destroy our entire civilization." Foster stared at him like he had lost his mind. "That is impossible. Time travel is science fiction." "So are energy barriers and weapons that can destroy entire fleets," Jake replied. "But you have seen those things with your own eyes." Before Foster could respond, Jake's communication system activated. Admiral Patterson was calling from the station, demanding to know what was happening. Jake could hear the anger in the older man's voice. "Jake, drop that energy field immediately," Patterson ordered. "You are interfering with a security operation." "I cannot do that, sir," Jake said. "The people trapped outside are not Federation security. They are alien infiltrators trying to steal this ship." "You are talking nonsense," Patterson snapped. "Commander Walsh is a decorated officer. She was investigating reports of illegal technology aboard your vessel." Jake felt his heart sink. Patterson did not know that Walsh was working for the enemy. The Admiral had been deceived, just like everyone else. "Sir, Walsh has been dead for 5 years," Jake said. Whoever is outside this ship is not the person you think she is. Patterson's voice grew cold. You are relieved of command, Jake. Stand down immediately and prepare to surrender your vessel. Jake closed the communication channel and turned to Foster. I am sorry, but I cannot let that happen. This ship is too important to fall into the wrong hands. Foster reached for her weapon, but Jake's enhanced reflexes allowed him to stop her before she could draw it. The genetic modifications that Arya had told him about were making him faster and stronger than a normal human. I do not want to hurt you, Jake said. But I cannot let you stop me from doing what needs to be done. Foster stared at him with shock and confusion. Jake, you are making a terrible mistake. If you run now, you will be branded a traitor. The entire Federation will hunt you down. I know, Jake said sadly. But if I stay, humanity will lose the war that is coming. I have seen what the Zephyrians will do to our worlds. I cannot let that happen. Jake felt the Harbinger responding to his decision. The ship's systems were preparing for departure, bringing engines online and charging weapons. Arya appeared on the bridge as a shimmering hologram. We must leave immediately, Arya said. Zephyrian reinforcements are approaching, and the Federation is mobilizing ships to intercept us. Jake nodded and turned to Foster. You have a choice to make. You can come with me and help save humanity, or you can stay here and become part of the system that will fail to protect our people. Foster looked around the bridge at the advanced technology that surrounded them. Jake could see her struggling with the decision, torn between her loyalty to the Federation and her growing understanding of what was at stake. If what you are saying is true, Foster said slowly, then we are all in terrible danger. The war will begin within months, Jake said. The Zephyrians are already moving their forces into position. When they attack, our current weapons and defenses will not be enough to stop them. Foster made her decision. I will come with you, but only to learn more about this threat. If I decide you are wrong, I will do everything in my power to stop you. Jake felt relief flood through him. Having Foster on his side would make the coming challenges much easier to face. The Harbinger detached from Kepler Station and activated its stealth systems. The ship became invisible to normal sensors as it moved away from the station. Jake could see Federation ships converging on their last known position, but they were already gone. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Foster worked together to recruit other officers who might be willing to join their cause. They approached people they trusted, officers who had shown courage and independence in the past. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kevin Price was the first to join them. Price had served with Jake on 2 previous ships and had always been willing to challenge orders that he believed were wrong. When Jake showed him the evidence of the coming war, Price immediately agreed to help. Communications Specialist Lieutenant Rachel Green came next. Green had been court-martialed for refusing to follow orders that would have resulted in civilian casualties. She had been cleared of all charges, but her career had been damaged. When Jake offered her a chance to make a real difference, she accepted without hesitation. Marine Captain Tony Miller was the last to join them. Miller had lost his entire unit in a battle with alien forces and blamed Federation leadership for the disaster. When Jake told him about the Harbinger's capabilities, Miller saw it as a chance to prevent other soldiers from suffering the same fate from their hidden base in the asteroid fields of the Tau Ceti system. Jake's team began preparing for the war that was coming. The Harbinger's manufacturing systems could create weapons, ammunition, and equipment using raw materials from the asteroids. The ship was less a vessel and more a mobile factory capable of supporting an entire fleet. Arya showed them classified Federation intelligence reports that proved the Zephyrian threat was real. Enemy forces were massing at the edge of known space, preparing for a massive offensive. The Federation leadership either did not know about the threat or was choosing to ignore it. We have perhaps 6 months before the attack begins, Arya told them during one of their planning sessions. The Zephyrians will strike at 12 Federation colonies simultaneously, overwhelming our defenses before we can respond. Jake studied the star charts that showed the planned attack routes. Can we warn the Federation without revealing our location? Any warning would be traced back to us, Foster said. Admiral Patterson has branded us as traitors. No one would believe information coming from us. Jake felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. He had the power to save humanity, but he also had to convince people to trust him, despite being labeled an enemy of the state. Then we prepare for war, Jake said. When the Zephyrians attack, we will be ready to stop them. The Zephyrian attack began exactly when Arya had predicted it would. Jake watched from the bridge of the Harbinger as 12 Federation colonies came under simultaneous assault. The enemy had brought massive fleets that overwhelmed the local defenses within hours. Millions of people were dying while the Federation scrambled to respond with forces that were completely outmatched. Jake felt sick as he watched the destruction unfold on his displays. New Angeles colony was burning. Titan Station had gone silent. After a brief distress call, the mining worlds of the Centauri system were being systematically destroyed. Everything that Arya had warned him about was coming true. The Federation Third Fleet is moving to intercept the enemy forces at New Angeles, Foster reported from her position at the tactical station. Admiral Patterson is leading the response personally. Jake knew that Patterson's ships would not stand a chance against Zephyrian technology. The enemy weapons could punch through Federation shields like they were made of paper. Jake had to act, even though it meant revealing himself to the people who considered him a traitor. Arya, can we reach New Angeles before Patterson's fleet is destroyed? Jake asked. If we leave immediately and push the engines to maximum capacity, Arya replied. But doing so will reveal our position to both Federation and Zephyrian forces. Jake made his decision quickly. Do it. The Harbinger jumped to faster-than-light speed, covering the distance to New Angeles in minutes instead of hours. When they emerged from their jump, Jake saw a scene of incredible destruction. The colony was under attack by 6 massive Zephyrian dreadnoughts while Patterson's fleet tried desperately to defend it. The Federation ships were losing badly. 3 destroyers had already been destroyed, and the flagship was taking heavy damage. Jake could see escape pods launching from damaged vessels as crews abandoned ship. This is the Harbinger to all Federation ships, Jake broadcast on an open channel. Break off your attack and withdraw to a safe distance. Patterson's voice came back immediately, filled with anger and disbelief. Jake Harrison, you are under arrest for treason. Surrender immediately or we will open fire. Sir, look at your tactical displays, Jake said calmly. Your ships are being destroyed. Let me help you. Before Patterson could respond, Jake ordered the Harbinger into battle. The ship moved with impossible grace, dodging Zephyrian weapons. Fire while returning shots of incredible precision. The first enemy dreadnought exploded within seconds of Jake's attack. Its shields completely useless against the Harbinger's advanced weapons, the remaining Zephyrian ships turned their attention to this new threat, but they might as well have been firing at empty space. The Harbinger's shields absorbed their most powerful attacks without even flickering. Jake's ship destroyed 2 more dreadnoughts before the survivors realized they were facing something far beyond their ability to handle, the Zephyrian fleet. Commander attempted to ram his ship into the Harbinger in a desperate suicide attack. Jake watched the massive vessel approach while Arya calmly calculated an intercept course. At the last possible moment, the Harbinger fired a single shot that split the enemy dreadnought in half. Within 15 minutes, the entire Zephyrian attack force was destroyed. The colony was saved and Patterson's surviving ships were safe. Jake had just accomplished something that should have been impossible for any single vessel. Harbinger, this is Admiral Patterson, came the transmission from the Federation flagship. We need to talk. Jake agreed to meet with Patterson aboard the colony station. The Admiral arrived with a full security detail, but Jake came alone except for Arya's holographic presence. The meeting took place in the station commander's office while rescue operations continued outside. Jake, what you did today was incredible, Patterson said, but it does not change the fact that you are a wanted fugitive. You stole Federation property and attacked station personnel. The people I attacked were alien infiltrators, Jake replied, and this ship was never Federation property. It belongs to humanity's future. Patterson looked tired and confused. I do not understand what is happening anymore. That ship of yours has capabilities that should not exist. The weapons, the shields, the speed, none of it makes sense. Jake spent the next hour explaining everything to Patterson. He told him about Arya, about the time travel, about the genetic modifications that allowed him to bond with the ship. He showed Patterson the star charts that predicted future Zephyrian attacks and the historical records of the war that was coming. Patterson listened to everything with growing amazement and horror. If this is true, then we are facing an enemy that will destroy everything we have built. That is why I had to steal the ship, Jake said. The Federation was not ready to believe the truth, and time was running out. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Earth. The Zephyrian Emperor himself was approaching the Sol system with a massive fleet. His ship was a dreadnought larger than any vessel ever constructed, surrounded by hundreds of escort ships. "This is Emperor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire," came the broadcast that reached every Federation world. "Your resistance ends today. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. The Emperor's arrival meant that the war had escalated beyond anything Arya's historical records had predicted. The future was changing, and not necessarily for the better. "I have to go," Jake told Patterson. "Earth is in danger." "Take me with you," Patterson said. "I want to see this through to the end." Jake nodded, and they raced back to the Harbinger. The ship was already preparing for departure, its systems responding to Jake's emotional state. Within minutes, they were racing toward Earth at maximum speed. When they arrived at the Sol system, Jake saw the largest space battle in human history unfolding before them. Every Federation ship that could reach Earth was engaged in desperate combat with the Zephyrian fleet. The battle was going badly for humanity. Dozens of Federation vessels had been destroyed while the enemy fleet remained largely intact. Jake brought the Harbinger into the battle without hesitation. The ship's weapons tore through enemy ships with devastating efficiency, but there were simply too many targets. For every Zephyrian ship that Jake destroyed, 3 more took its place. The Emperor's flagship turned its attention to the Harbinger, recognizing it as the greatest threat. The massive vessel was armed with weapons that could destroy entire moons, and its shields were strong enough to withstand the combined fire of an entire fleet. Jake felt Arya reaching deeper into his mind, accessing abilities that he had not known he possessed. The bond between them grew stronger than it had ever been before, and Jake realized that he could do something that no one had ever attempted. "Jake, I can create a temporal disruption that will send the Zephyrian fleet back to their own space," Arya said, "but the energy required will be enormous. It might destroy both of us." Jake looked at the battle raging around Earth. Thousands of people were dying with each passing minute. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. "Do it," Jake said. The Harbinger began to glow with incredible energy as Arya channeled power from sources that Jake could not comprehend. The ship became a beacon of light that could be seen from every world in the solar system. Jake felt the energy flowing through him, connecting him to the ship in ways that went beyond the physical. The temporal disruption activated with a flash that lit up the entire system. When the light faded, the Zephyrian fleet was gone, sent back to their own space through dimensional rifts that immediately sealed themselves. The war was over, at least for now. Jake collapsed in his command chair, exhausted by the effort. Arya's hologram flickered and dimmed as she struggled to maintain her form. They had won, but the victory had cost them both dearly. "Is it over?" Patterson asked. "For now," Jake said weakly. "But they will be back. We need to be ready."